At 2:30 inches the morning I woke up unable to breathe. Thick smoke rolled across my bedroom ceiling, and within minutes the house I had lived in for over 30 years was burning to the ground. I ran outside in my pajamas, barefoot, shaking as my entire life turned to ash. I called my son for help, but his voice was cold. This isn't my problem anymore. 1 week later, the fire investigator asked me a single question that made everything collapse. What the security camera revealed left even me completely stunned. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories. I'm truly grateful you chose to spend these moments with me. Before the story unfolds, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today and what's the current temperature in your city? Your voices, your locations, and your stories matter more than you know. Please note this narrative contains fictionalized elements created for storytelling and learning. Any similarity to actual people or places is coincidental, but the lesson behind the story is intentionally meaningful. I woke up at 2:30 inches the morning because I couldn't breathe. At first I thought I was having a dream, one of those nightmares where you're drowning and your lungs won't work. But then I opened my eyes and saw the smoke-thick gray rolling across my bedroom ceiling like storm clouds. I sat up fast, too fast. My head spun, but the fear kept me moving. The smoke alarm wasn't going off. I don't know why. Maybe it was old. Maybe the batteries were dead. Maybe someone had disabled it. I didn't know yet. All I knew was that smoke was filling my bedroom and I needed to get out. I swung my legs off the bed and stood up. The floor was warm under my bare feet. Not hot, not yet, but warm enough to make my stomach drop. I moved toward the bedroom door and reached for the handle. The metal burned my palm. I yanked my hand back with a gasp. The fire was on the other side. My house's was a single-story ranch-style home in the suburbs. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, a living room. I'd lived there for 32 years. My wife Margaret and I bought it when our son Andrew was 6 years old. We raised him there. We grew old there, and after Margaret passed away 4 years ago, I stayed because it was home. Now it was burning. I looked around the bedroom, my heart hammering in my chest. The smoke was getting thicker. I could hear crackling sounds from somewhere in the house. Wood splitting glass, breaking something, collapsing the window. I stumbled to the window and grabbed the frame. It was one of those old double-hung windows with a lock at the top. My hands shook as I twisted the lock and pushed up on the frame. It didn't move. I tried again. Pushed harder. The window was stuck, paint age. I don't know. I could feel the panic rising in my throat. I looked around for something heavy. My bedside lamp. I grabbed it, ripped the cord from the wall, and swung it at the window. The glass shattered. Cold February air rushed in, and I gasped, sucking in oxygen. But the fresh air also fed the fire. I heard a roar from the hallway, a sound like a freight train, and suddenly the smoke in my room got darker, hotter. I didn't have time to think. I knocked out the remaining glass with the lamp, threw a blanket over the windowsill, and climbed through. My legs tangled in my pajama pants. I fell. I landed in the boxwood shrubs below my bedroom window. Branches scraped my arms and face. My shoulder hit the ground hard and pain shot through my left side, but I was out. I rolled onto my back in the cold grass, staring up at the sky. It was still dark, maybe 30 inches the morning, but I could see the orange glow reflecting off the clouds above my house. I pushed myself up and turned around. My house was burning. Flames poured out of the windows. The front door was open. I don't know how. And I could see fire inside, eating through the living room, the hallway, everything. I stood there on the sidewalk in my pajamas, barefoot, shaking, and watched my entire life go up in smoke. I thought about Margaret's photos, the albums we kept in the hall, closet are wedding pictures. Pictures of Andrew, as a baby, as a kid, graduating high school, all of it gone. I thought about Margaret's jewelry box on the dresser, the letters she'd written to me during our courtship, the quilt her mother made for us, the coffee mug Andrew gave me on Father's Day 15 years ago that said, "World's best dad." All of it gone. A neighbor, Judith Warren, an elderly woman who lived 2 houses down, came running out in her bathrobe. "Henry, oh my God. Henry, are you all right?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. She pulled out her cell phone and called 911. I don't remember much about the next hour. The fire trucks came. The firefighters worked. I sat on the curb wrapped in a blanket someone gave me, and I watched them try to save what was left. But by the time the sun started to rise, there wasn't much left to save. At some point, maybe 3:15 inches the morning, maybe later, I realized I needed to call Andrew. Andrew is my only child. He's 38 years old, married, no kids yet. He lives about 40 minutes away in the city. We used to be close, but over the past year things had gotten strained. I didn't know why. He'd stopped calling as much, stopped visiting. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd say he was busy with work. I told myself it was normal. Adult children have their own lives. But standing there, on the sidewalk, watching my house burn, I needed my son. I pulled out my cell phone, thank God I'd grabbed it from the nightstand, and dialed Andrew's number. It rang 4 times. 5, 6. Then he answered. His voice was thick with sleep. "Dad, what? What time is it, Andrew?" My voice cracked. "Andrew, there's been a fire. The house, my house," is what I heard rustling. He was sitting up. "What are you talking about?" "My house is on fire." I got out. "But everything's I don't have anywhere to." I stopped, took a breath. "I need help, son." There was a pause. Then I heard a woman's voice in the background. Nicole, Andrew's wife. I couldn't hear what she said, but her tone was sharp. Andrew's voice came back, quieter now, colder. "Dad, I can't." I blinked. "What I can't?" "This isn't my problem anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Now, Andrew, please. I just need a place to click." He hung up. I stood there on the sidewalk, my phone in my hand, staring at the screen. The call had lasted 7 seconds. Around me, firefighters shouted instructions. Water hissed against hot metal. Judith Warren was talking to a police officer pointing at my house, but all I could hear were Andrew's words playing over and over in my head. "This isn't my problem anymore." By 6:00 inches the morning the fire was out, what remained of my house was a blackened shell. The roof had collapsed. The walls were still standing, but barely. I was sitting on the back of an ambulance. A paramedic had checked me over for smoke inhalation and cuts from the broken window when a woman in a navy jacket approached me. She was in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and sharp, intelligent eyes. She carried a clipboard and wore a badge clipped to her belt. "Mr. Donovan," she said, "I'm Michelle Reeves. I'm the fire investigator assigned to your case." I nodded. "Okay." She glanced at the ruins of my house, then back at me. "I need to ask you a few questions if you're up for it." "Sure. Do you have any idea how I urged. I woke up and there was smoke everywhere. I didn't. "I don't know. Do you smoke?" "No." "Space heaters, candles, anything like that?" "No." She wrote something on her clipboard. Then she looked at me again and her expression changed. It became serious. "Careful, Mr. Donovan. I've done a preliminary walkthrough of your property. I found something in the basement." "What?" She hesitated. "Then, a timing device connected to your gas line." I stared at her. "A timing device? Wait, yes. Someone set it to open the gas valve at a specific time. Then they ignited it remotely. I couldn't process what she was saying. I don't. What are you? She looked me in the eye and I saw something in her face. I'll never forget. Sympathy and anger. Mr. Donovan, she said quietly. This wasn't an accident. This was arson. Someone wanted you dead. 3 days after the fire, I sat in Edward Barnes's small guest room staring at a cardboard box containing everything I had left in the world. My cell phone, my wallet, a toothbrush. Edward had given me 3 pairs of borrowed socks, 2 shirts that were too big, 1 pair of jeans held up with a belt. I'd punched an extra hole into. That was it. 68 years of living reduced to a cardboard box. Edward knocked on the doorframe. You doing okay? Henry Edward Barnes had been my best friend for 40 years. We'd met at work in the 80s, raised our kids together, watched each other bury our wives. After his wife Linda passed 6 years ago, we'd become each other's lifeline. I'd thought I understood loneliness then. I didn't. Not until I stood on a sidewalk watching my house burn while my son told me it wasn't his problem. I'm fine, I said. Edward gave me a look that said he knew I was lying. Coffee's ready, and I made eggs. I followed him to the kitchen. Edward's house was small, a 2-bedroom bungalow, about 15 minutes from where I used to live. Used to past tense. I picked at the scrambled eggs he'd put in front of me. You should call the insurance company, Edward said. Get that process started. Yeah. I pulled out my wallet. Metropolitan Insurance. I've had them for 20 years. They'll take care of you, Edward said. I hoped he was right. After breakfast, I called Metropolitan Insurance. After 12 minutes of hold music, a man answered. Metropolitan Insurance Claims Department. This is Stephen Sanders speaking. My house burned down, I said. There was a pause. I'm very sorry to hear that, sir. Let me pull up your account. Policy number. I read it off to him. Typing sounds. Okay, Mr. Donovan. Policy for 4237 Maple Drive, coverage limit of $180. 000. You're reporting a total loss. Yes. We'll need to send an adjuster out to assess the damage. Do you have a fire report? The fire investigator said it was arson. Another pause. Longer this time. Arson. Stephen repeated carefully. Yes, that changes things. If the fire was deliberately set, we'll need to coordinate with law enforcement. It usually takes a few days. Could be a week, maybe 2. 2 weeks. I closed my eyes. Mr. Donovan, are you still there? Yeah. Do you have a place to stay? I'm staying with a friend. Good. I'll email you the paperwork and stay in touch as the process moves forward. I thanked him and hung up. Edward was standing in the doorway. Well, they need a few days, maybe 2 weeks. You can stay here as long as you need. You know that. I know. Thank you. Your family, Henry. I looked at him and felt something other than fear and loss. Gratitude. At least I had Edward. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in Edward's guest bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind churning. Someone wanted me dead. That meant someone had planned this. Gone into my house, installed a timing device, set it to go off at 2:30 inches the morning when I'd have the least chance of escaping. Who I didn't have enemies. I was a retired accountant. I'd lived a quiet life. I paid my bills. I didn't owe anyone money. So why? And then I thought about Andrew. Andrew who'd refused to help. Andrew whose voice had gone cold. Andrew who'd said, "This isn't my problem anymore." What had changed? The last time I'd seen him was early January. He and Nicole had come over for dinner. Nicole had been polite but distant. Andrew had seemed distracted. I'd asked if everything was okay. He'd said he was just tired from work. I'd believed him. And then I remembered something else. 5 days before the fire, February 7th, Andrew and Nicole had come over again. They'd said they wanted to cook dinner for me. Nicole had made chicken parmesan. It had been a nice evening. And Nicole had brought a bag, a big black duffel bag. At the time, I'd assumed it was full of groceries or pots and pans. I hadn't thought much of it, but now I couldn't stop thinking about it. They'd arrived at 6:30. We'd eaten around 7:30. They'd left around 9:00. And I'd noticed now that I thought about it that Nicole hadn't been carrying the bag when they left. Where had it gone? Had she left it in the house? Why I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. No, that was crazy. Andrew was my son. Nicole was his wife. They wouldn't. But someone had tried to end my life. And Andrew had told me it wasn't his problem. I lay back down, but I didn't sleep. The next morning my phone rang at 9:00. I was pouring coffee when I saw the name. Stephen Sanders, Metropolitan Insurance. I answered, "Hello, Mr. Donovan. It's Stephen Sanders. I have an update on your claim." That was fast. Yes. Well, he paused. "There's something unusual we need to discuss. Can you talk right now?" I felt a chill. "Yeah, I can talk. I was reviewing your policy this morning and I noticed that your beneficiary designation was changed recently. What your life insurance beneficiary? It was updated about a month ago, January 15th. I didn't update anything." Another pause. Mr. Donovan Stevens said slowly, "According to our records, you signed a form requesting that the beneficiary be changed from yourself to your son Andrew Donovan. We have your signature on file." My chest tightened. "I never signed anything." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I heard typing." "Mr. Donovan, I'm looking at the signature right now. It looks like yours. But what? But there are some irregularities, hesitation marks, small inconsistencies in the stroke pattern. It's subtle," but he stopped. "Mr. Donovan, I think someone may have forged your signature." I couldn't breathe. "Mr. Donovan, I'm here. I'm going to flag this as potential fraud and send it to our investigation team. But in the meantime, I need to ask you something. Personal documents, bank accounts, insurance papers, anything like that." I thought about Nicole's black duffel bag. I thought about the way Andrew's voice had gone cold on the phone. I thought about the timing device Michelle Reeves had found in my basement, and I realized that everything was about to get much worse. Stephen Sanders from Metropolitan Insurance spoke carefully, as if he were weighing every word. "Mr. Donovan, I need to ask you about something unusual." I was sitting at Edward's kitchen table, my second cup of coffee cooling untouched in front of me. It was 9:30 inches the morning, and Stephen had called back less than 24 hours after our first conversation. That alone made my chest tighten. "Okay," I said. "What is it?" "I spent last night reviewing your file more closely," Stephen said, "and I found something that doesn't add up." My stomach nodded. "What do you mean? Your policy beneficiary was changed on January 15th of this year, about a month before the fire." I frowned. "I already told you I didn't change anything." "I know, but this wasn't a simple update. It was a full redization. Originally, your beneficiary was listed as your estate. On January 15th, someone submitted paperwork changing the beneficiary to your son Andrew Donovan." The room seemed to tilt. "What if you had died in the fire, Mr. Donovan?" "The payout, $180, 000, would have gone directly to Andrew, not to your estate, directly to him." I couldn't speak. "And there's more," Stephen continued quietly. "The form was supposedly signed by you. We have a copy with your signature." "That's impossible," I said. I never signed anything like that. That's why I'm concerned, he replied. I'm looking at the signature now, and something about it feels wrong. What? Check your email. I just sent you a scan of the form. I pulled Edward's old laptop closer and opened my inbox. Stephen's email sat at the top. I clicked the attachment and a PDF loaded onto the screen. It was a standard insurance document dense with fine print and check boxes. At the bottom was a signature line. Henry Donovan. I stared at it. At first glance, it looked right. The slant was familiar. The capital H had the small loop I always used. The curve at the end of Donovan matched what I'd written thousands of times, but it wasn't mine. Mr. Donovan, Stephen asked. Are you looking at it? Yes. What do you think? I zoomed in. That's when I saw it. The D in Donovan tilted slightly to the left. Mine always leaned to the right. Always. I'd signed my name on mortgages, tax forms, contracts, cards. My D never leaned left. There was something else. The final stroke, the tail of the N, was too precise, too careful. When I signed, that line was fast, almost sloppy. This one looked deliberate, like someone had gone slowly to make sure it looked correct. It's not my signature, I said. No, Stephen agreed. I don't believe it is. How can you tell? Hesitation marks, he said. Forgers usually move slowly to copy a signature. Exactly. That creates tiny pauses in the ink. If you look closely at the capital letters, you can see breaks in the flow. Most people miss it. I've seen enough fraud cases to recognize the pattern. Insurance fraud. The words hit hard. Someone forged my signature. I said, changed the beneficiary to Andrew. And then a month later, my house burned down. Yes, if I died, your son would have received $180,000. I felt nauseous. Mr. Donovan, Stevens said, I need to ask this carefully. Who had access to your personal documents? Who could study your signature closely enough to copy it? I closed my eyes. 5 days before the fire, Andrew and Nicole had come over for dinner. Nicole had arrived carrying a large black duffel bag. She'd left it somewhere in the house while we ate. When they left, she hadn't been carrying it. I'd assumed she forgot it. But what if she hadn't? What if she'd left it there on purpose? What if she'd gone through my office while Andrew distracted me in the kitchen? My insurance paperwork was in a filing cabinet in my home office, neatly labeled. Anyone opening that drawer could find everything in seconds. Bank statements, my social security card, my will, everything. Mr. Donovan, Stephen prompted. My son and his wife came over for dinner, I said quietly. 5 days before the fire. She brought a bag, a big one, and I think she may have gone through my office. Stephen was silent for a moment. Then he said, I'm filing a formal fraud report with our investigation unit, and I strongly recommend you contact the police. If someone forged your signature and attempted to profit from your death, this is criminal. Yeah, I said. Do you have an attorney? No, you should consider getting one, and you need to speak with the fire investigator. Michelle Reeves, correct. Yes, she needs this information. It establishes motive. Motive. Someone wanted me dead so they could collect $180,000. Someone who had access to my house, who had eaten dinner with me, who had smiled across my table. One more question, Mr. Donovan, Stephen said. Does Andrew know you survived the fire? I hesitated. Andrew had hung up on me that night. I hadn't called him back. I don't know, I said. Maybe not. You may want to keep it that way for now, Stephen said carefully. Until the investigation progresses. I understood. If Andrew or Nicole believed I was dead, they might make a mistake. They might reveal something. If they knew I was alive, they might be more careful. I'll be careful, I said. "I'll be in touch," Steven said. "And I'm sorry this is happening to you." I thanked him and hung up. I sat at Edward's kitchen table for a long time staring at the forged signature on the screen. Someone had practiced writing my name, had studied every loop and stroke. Someone had copied it well enough to fool an insurance company, and then they had tried to kill me. I kept thinking about the black duffel bag Nicole brought into my house 5 days before the fire. 2 days later, Michelle Reeves came back to Edward's house. This time she brought a laptop. I was sitting in the living room when Edward answered the door. Michelle stepped inside wearing the same navy jacket and carrying a black computer bag over her shoulder. "Mr. Donovan," she said, "do you have a few minutes? I have updates on the investigation." "Yeah, of course." She sat down across from me and pulled out the laptop. Edward quietly excused himself to the kitchen. Michelle turned the screen so I could see. "I found something in your basement." The photo showed a twisted piece of metal and plastic charred black, but still recognizable as some kind of device. "This is a timer switch," Michelle said. "The kind you buy at a hardware store for Christmas lights, but this one was connected to your gas line. Someone installed a valve that could open remotely. They set the timer for 2:30 inches the morning. When it activated, gas flooded your basement. Then they triggered a spark igniter, probably by cell phone, and your house went up." I stared at the screen. "Someone planned all of that." "Yes. This was premeditated, Mr. Donovan. This was an attempt on your life. I've contacted the police. Detective Greg Martinez will be taking over, but I wanted to show you something first." She closed the photo and opened a video file. "Your doorbell camera," she said. "Ring brand the footage is cloud stored, so we retrieved the recordings from the week before the fire." She clicked play. The video showed my front door. The timestamp read February 7th, 2:02:46:45 p.m. Andrew's silver Honda pulled into my driveway. He got out looking tired. Then Nicole stepped out of the passenger side. She was holding a large black duffel bag. I leaned closer. Nicole slung the bag over her shoulder and walked toward my door. Andrew followed. They disappeared from view. Michelle fast-forwarded 7:00 p.m., 7:30 p.m., 8:00 p.m. Nothing but my empty driveway. Then at 8:47 p.m., my front door opened. Andrew walked out first. He got in the car. Nicole followed, but she wasn't carrying the bag. She left it inside. Michelle said whatever was in that bag, she brought it into your house and left it there. I couldn't speak. "Do you remember what was in it?" Michelle asked. "I thought it was groceries," I said. "Or cooking supplies. They were making dinner." "I didn't. I was setting the table watching TV. I wasn't paying attention." Michelle nodded. "I think Nicole used that bag to bring in the timer device and the installation tools. While you were distracted, she went to your basement and set everything up." "But Andrew was there too," I said. "He would have noticed." "Maybe," Michelle said carefully. "Or maybe he was helping her." The words hit me hard. "No, Andrew wouldn't." She held up a hand. "I'm not accusing anyone yet. I'm following the evidence. And the evidence says Nicole brought something into your house 5 days before it burned down." She swiped to a new image, a photograph of a partially burned receipt. "I found this in your kitchen drawer," she said. "Mostly burned but readable." I looked at it. The receipt was from Henderson's Hardware, dated February 5th at 3:47 inches the afternoon. The store name was printed at the top, and below that was a list of items. A timer switch for $12.99, 10 feet of copper wire for $850, a roll of electrical tape for $5.99, and a gas valve adapter for $18.99. The total came to $4,647. At the bottom, it showed the payment method, a credit card ending in 8,891, and the card holder named Nicole Morgan. I stared at her name. My son's wife had bought the materials. She'd brought them to my house, she'd installed them in my basement, and then she'd tried to end my life. I don't understand, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Why would she do this? I don't know yet, Michelle said. But I need to ask you something. Has your son or his wife asked about your will recently? My will. Yes. Who inherits your estate when you pass away? I thought back. Andrew asked about it last year. October maybe. He said he was updating his own will and wanted to make sure I had mine in order. What? What did you tell him that everything goes to him? He's my only child. The house, my savings, my retirement accounts. How much roughly, May? Maybe 300,000. The house was paid off. I have some money in a 401k and the life insurance 180,000. Michelle wrote in her notebook. So if you had died in that fire, Andrew would have received close to half. 1 million. The room tilted. 500,000. Michelle looked at me with sympathy. Mr. Donovan, I think we found the motive. 4 days after Michelle's visit, Nicole showed up at Edward's house carrying a pharmacy bag. I was in the guest room scrolling through emails on Edward's laptop when the doorbell rang. Edward answered it. I heard his low voice, then a woman's soft familiar. Nicole, my heart started pounding. I stood up slowly. Why was she here? I stepped into the living room. Edward stood in the doorway while Nicole remained on the porch. She wore a pale blue sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled into a neat ponytail. Her expression was full of concern, almost worry. Henry, she said when she saw me. I'm so glad you're okay. I've been so worried about you. I stared at her. 4 days earlier, Michelle had shown me the hardware store receipt with Nicole's name on it. Nicole had purchased the timer switch. Nicole had brought the black duffel bag into my house. Nicole had installed the device that nearly killed me. Now she was standing on Edward's porch acting like nothing had happened. Nicole, I said flatly. May I come in? She asked. I brought something for you. Edward looked at me silently, asking whether I wanted her gone. I shook my head. If she was here, I needed to know why. Sure, I said. Come in. Nicole stepped inside. Edward stayed by the door, arms crossed, watching her closely. She lifted the pharmacy bag. I know you've been through a lot, and I wanted to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Are you still taking your heart medication? My heart medication. Lisapril, she said. You've been on it for years. Right. Yes, I said cautiously. I spoke with Andrew's Dr. Matthews about everything you've been dealing with. The fire. The stress. He thought it might be wise to increase your dosage temporarily just to keep your blood pressure stable. She reached into the bag and pulled out a pill bottle. He called in a prescription for you. 20 milligrams instead of 10. Same medication, just a stronger dose. She held it out. I didn't take it. Dr. Matthews, I said. I don't know a Dr. Matthews. He's Andrew's doctor, Nicole replied smoothly. I explained your medical history and he agreed this would help. I had it filled this morning at Riverside Pharmacy. Riverside Pharmacy. I'd never used Riverside. My prescriptions were always filled at the CVS, near my old house. I looked at the bottle. The label read in L 20 milligrams. Take 1 tablet daily. My name was printed clearly, Henry Donovan. It looked real. Still, something felt off. That's very thoughtful, I said carefully. But I should talk to my own doctor before changing anything. Nicole's smile tightened just a little. Of course, but Dr. Matthews assured me it's safe. Andrew really wanted me to bring it. He's been so worried about you. Andrew's worried. I asked sharper than I meant to. Of course, she said. You're his father. I thought about Andrew's voice the night of the fire. This isn't my problem anymore. I thought about the forged insurance form. I thought about money. Where is Andrew? I asked. At work, Nicole said. He wanted to come, but he couldn't get away. She extended the bottle again. Please, Henry, just take it for Andrew. He'll feel better knowing you have it. She looked sincere, like a daughter-in-law who cared deeply. But I'd seen the receipt. I'd seen her name. I'd watched the footage of her carrying the duffel bag inside my house and leaving without it. I reached out and took the bottle. Thank you, I said. Her smile returned. Of course, I'm just glad I could help. She glanced at Edward, who hadn't moved from the doorway. Well, I should go, she said. I have errands to run, but please call if you need anything. I will. She hugged me quickly. I didn't hug back. Then she was gone. Edward shut the door and turned to me. What the hell was that? I don't know. You're not taking those pills, are you? I looked at the bottle. The label was clean. The dosage made sense. But Nicole had brought it. Nicole, who'd bought copper wire and a gas valve adapter. Nicole, who'd installed a device meant to flood my basement with gas and ignite it while I slept. Nicole, who had reason to want me dead. No, I said, I'm not taking them. Good. I set the bottle on the kitchen counter, then picked it up again and examined it under the light. The pills inside were small, white, and round, identical to the ones I'd taken for years. But after the footage, the forged documents, the fraud, I couldn't fraud. Shake the feeling something was wrong. What are you thinking? Edward asked. I turned the bottle slowly in my hand. I'm thinking, I said quietly, that Nicole just gave me something she wants me to take very badly. Edward's expression darkened. I don't know what it is, I added. But I'm not taking any chances. I set the bottle down and stared at it. Everything about it looked right. And yet deep in my gut something whispered that it wasn't. The next morning I took the new pill like I did every morning. 15 minutes later I knew I'd made a mistake. I know what you're thinking. After everything, the camera footage, the receipt, the forged signature, why would I take medication that Nicole brought me? The truth is, I almost didn't. The night before, I'd set the pill bottle on the nightstand and stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to throw it away, but another part, the part that had been taking Linopril for 3 years, the part that knew my blood pressure was genuinely a problem, wondered if I was being paranoid. What if Nicole really was just trying to help? What if I was so traumatized by the fire that I was seeing threats where there weren't any? Edward had said I shouldn't take it. But Edward didn't know what it was like to have your heart skip beats in the middle of the night. He didn't know what it felt like to be 68 years old and terrified that the next chest pain might be the last one. So that morning at 7:30, I opened the bottle and swallowed one pill with a glass of water. For 15 minutes, nothing happened. I sat at Edward's kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the news on his laptop. Edward was in the shower. The house was quiet. Then my throat started to feel tight. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Stress, maybe anxiety. But the tightness got worse. My airway felt like it was narrowing, like someone was pressing their thumbs against my windpipe. I stood up, my hand going to my neck. My skin felt hot. I looked down at my arms. Red welts were spreading across my forearms, angry and raised hives. I tried to call for Edward, but my voice came out as a wheeze. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself, but my knees buckled. I heard footsteps. Edward's voice sharp with alarm. Henry. Jesus. Henry, what's wrong? I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. Edward grabbed my shoulders, lowering me into a chair. Your face, Henry. Your face is swelling up. What did you take? What did you? He saw the pill bottle on the counter. The pills Nicole brought. I nodded. Damn it. Edward was already pulling out his phone dialing. I'm calling 911. Stay with me, Henry. Stay with me. I heard him talking to the dispatcher. My friend is having a severe allergic reaction. Yes, his throat is closing up. Yes, he's conscious but barely breathing. The edges of my vision were going dark. I tried to focus on Edward's face, but it kept blurring. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. And then I thought Nicole did this. I don't remember much about the ambulance ride. Flashing lights, the wail of the siren, a paramedic's face close to mine saying something I couldn't understand. I remember the sharp sting of a needle in my thigh. EpiPen, I learned later. Epinephrine, to counteract the anaphylaxis. I remember the air rushing back into my lungs. The relief was so overwhelming I almost cried. By the time we reached Mercy General Hospital, I could breathe again. My throat was still tight, my skin still covered in hives, but the immediate danger had passed. They wheeled me into the emergency room. A doctor appeared, a woman in her 40s, with auburn hair and sharp green eyes. She had the kind of calm, confident presence that made you feel safe even when everything was falling apart. But Mr. Donovan, I'm Dr. Catherine Hayes, she said. You're going to be okay. We're going to monitor you for a few hours and make sure the reaction doesn't come back. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. Edward was there, hovering near the door of the exam room, his face pale. Is he going to be all right? Shake him. He'll be fine, Dr. Hayes said. The paramedics got to him in time, but this was a serious anaphylactic reaction. Another 10 minutes and she stopped. Let's just say we're very lucky. She turned back to me. Mr. Donovan, do you have any known allergies? Penicillin, I said. My voice was allergic since I was a kid. Severe reaction. I always tell doctors. Dr. Hayes frowned. She picked up the pill bottle that Edward had brought with us. This is what you took this morning, yes. She opened the bottle and shook one of the pills into her palm. She studied it for a moment, then walked over to a computer terminal and typed something in. A few minutes later, she came back with a printout. Mr. Donovan, she said carefully. This is not Linopril. I stared at her. What? I ran a quick analysis. These pills contain amoxicillin. It's a penicillin derivative. Whoever gave you this medication either didn't know about your allergy. She paused. Or they did. The room went cold. The label says, Lisinopril, I said weakly. Yes, the label is fake. Dr. Hayes held up the bottle. Look at the pharmacy information. Riverside Pharmacy. I looked it up. There's no Riverside Pharmacy registered in this city. This label was printed somewhere else. Someone put penicillin pills in a fake prescription bottle and gave it to you. Edward swore under his breath. I couldn't speak. My mind was reeling. Nicole had brought me pills that would trigger a fatal allergic reaction. She'd put them in a fake prescription bottle. She'd smiled at me and told me they were for my health. She'd tried to end my life again. Dr. Hayes looked at me with concern. Mr. Dr. Donovan, someone gave you the wrong medication on purpose. This could have taken your life. Have you contacted the police? I thought about Michelle Reeves, about the timer device, about the forged signature on the insurance form, about the camera footage of Nicole carrying the black duffel bag into my house. Yes, I said. The police already know. Good, because this is attempted murder. The word hung in the air. Murder. Dr. Hayes placed the pill bottle on the tray next to my bed. I'm going to keep this as evidence, and I'm going to file a report with hospital security. You need to be very careful, Mr. Donovan. Whoever did this, she stopped. They're not going to stop trying. 2 days after I got out of the hospital, Michelle Reeves came to see me again. This time she brought a file folder and a detective from the police department. I was sitting in Edward's living room when they arrived. Edward answered the door and Michelle stepped inside with a man I'd never seen before. He was in his mid-30s, Hispanic with dark hair and a nonsense expression. He wore a navy blazer and carried a leather notebook. "Mr. Donovan," Michelle said, "this is Detective Greg Martinez. He's with the Criminal Investigations Unit. He's taking over the case." Greg extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. "Mr. Donovan, I've been reviewing everything Michelle found." Greg said the timer device, the camera footage, the hardware store receipt, and now, with the incident at the hospital, we're treating this as two separate attempts on your life. Within a two-period. Two attempts. The words made it real. "I need to ask you some questions," Greg continued. "And I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good." He sat down across from me. Michelle sat next to him. Edward hovered near the doorway, arms crossed like a guard dog. Greg opened his notebook. "Let's start with motive. When someone tries to harm another person, especially family, it usually comes down to money, revenge, or covering up a secret. Does any of that sound familiar?" I thought about the insurance beneficiary form, the forged signature, the $500,000 Andrew would have inherited. "Money," I said quietly. Greg nodded. "That's what we thought. So Michelle and I spent the last 2 days digging into your son's finances." He pulled a sheet of paper from the folder and handed it to me. It was a bank statement. Andrew's name was at the top. The balance was deeply negative. "Andrew owes $47,000,000, Greg said. "Credit cards, personal loans, payday advances. He's maxed out on everything." I stared at the numbers. "How did this happen?" "Crypto investment scam last December. He put 300,000 into an online trading platform that promised huge returns. The platform disappeared overnight, took his money and vanished. He's been trying to dig himself out, but the interest keeps piling up." I felt sick. "I didn't know." "He didn't tell you?" "No, Andrew and we haven't been close lately. I thought he was just busy with work." Greg made a note. "When's the last time you talked to him?" "The night of the fire. He said it wasn't his problem anymore." Greg's expression darkened. "And 5 days before the fire, he and his wife came to your house for dinner?" "Yes." Shouting. "That's when Nicole brought the black duffel bag?" "Yes." Greg leaned forward. "Mr. Donovan, your life insurance is worth $180,000. Add your estate, your house savings, retirement accounts, and Andrew stands to inherit close to $500,000 when you pass away. That's more than enough to pay off his debts and start over." The room felt like it was tilting. "You think, Andrew," I couldn't finish. "I don't know yet," Greg said. "But he had motive and his wife had access to your house and your personal documents." Michelle spoke up, which brings us to Nicole. She pulled another sheet from the folder. "I ran a background check on Nicole Morgan, and I found something interesting. What Nicole Morgan didn't exist before March of last year." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "The name first appeared in the system in March 2023. That's when she legally changed it. Before that, she was Nicole Parker." "She changed her name?" "Yes. 1 month before she married your son." Greg leaned back. "People change their names for lots of reasons, but the timing is suspicious. She changes her name, marries Andrew a month later, and less than a year after that, she's installing timer devices in your basement, Tim." "What? What was her name before?" I asked. "Nicole Parker," Michelle said. "And before the name change, she lived in San Diego, California." San Diego. Something about that city tugged at my memory, but I couldn't place it. "Did you ever live in San Diego?" Greg asked. Yeah, from 2004 to 2007. I worked there for a few years before we moved. Do you remember anyone named Parker? I shook my head slowly. Not that I can think of. Greg exchanged a glance with Michelle. We're going to dig deeper. Find out why Nicole Parker felt the need to change her identity, but I need to ask you some. Okay, is there any connection between you and anyone from San Diego? Anyone who might have a reason to want to harm you? I thought hard. I tried to remember faces, names, conflicts, but my time in San Diego had been quiet. I'd worked as an accountant for a small firm. Margaret and I had lived in a modest apartment. Andrew had been in middle school. We'd kept to ourselves. I can't think of anyone, I said. Greg frowned. There has to be something. Nicole didn't just randomly decide to marry your son and try to harm you. She targeted you specifically. We need to figure out why. He closed his notebook and stood. Mr. Donovan, this case is more complicated than I thought. 2 attempts on your life. A daughter-in-law with a fake identity. A son with massive debts. We're going to figure this out, but it's going to take time. How much time? Days? Maybe weeks. In the meantime, stay away from Andrew and Nicole. Don't contact them. Don't let them know where you are. If they try to reach you, call me immediately. I will. Michelle and Greg left a few minutes later. Edward closed the door and turned to me. Henry, what the hell is going on? I don't know, I said. But that wasn't entirely true because somewhere in the back of my mind the name Nicole Parker was echoing. And the city San Diego kept repeating itself like a warning I couldn't quite hear. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in Edward's guest bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Nicole Parker, San Diego, 18 years ago. What happened in San Diego 18 years ago? I lived there from 2004 to 2007. Andrew was in middle school. Margaret was alive and healthy. I worked normal hours, came home to a quiet apartment, paid my bills. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would make someone change their name and hunt me down 18 years later. So why did those words feel so important? Nicole Parker, San Diego, 2006. And why couldn't I remember that night? Sleep wouldn't come. Michelle's words echoed in my head. Nicole Parker from San Diego. I sat alone in Edward's guest room with his laptop balanced on my knees, searching. It was past midnight. The house was silent. Edward had gone to bed hours earlier, but my mind refused to slow. Nicole Parker. Why did that name feel familiar? I opened Google and typed Nicole Parker, San Diego. The results were useless. Dozens of entries appeared. A real estate agent, a teacher, a yoga instructor. None of the faces matched the woman I knew. Before I reveal who Nicole really was and why she wanted me gone, I need to hear from you. What do you think her real motive is? Drop your theories in the comments. I want to know you're still with me. And a quick reminder, parts of this story include fictionalized elements. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. But if you're ready for the truth, let's continue. I refined the search. Nicole Parker, San Diego, 2023. Still nothing. Helpful. Frustrated, I leaned back and tried another angle. I opened Facebook and searched her name. Hundreds of profiles appeared. I scrolled through picture after picture, scanning faces. Then I found her. The account was old and active since early 2023. The profile photo showed a younger Nicole standing on a beach smiling. Her hair was longer, her face softer, but it was unmistakably her. I clicked the profile. Most posts were private, but a few older photos were public. I scrolled slowly, then froze. One picture showed 2 young women with their arms around each other's shoulders. They looked like sisters. Same dark hair, same smile. The caption read Nicole and Rachel Parker sisters forever. The tag read Rachel Parker 2006. My chest tightened. I clicked the name, but the profile was gone, either deleted or memorialized. I went back to Google and typed Rachel Parker San Diego 2006. The first result was an obituary. Rachel Marie Parker, born April 3, 1990, died October 15, 2006, age 16. I stared at the screen. The obituary described Rachel as a bright, loving daughter and sister, a sophomore at Lincoln High School who loved art and music. She had been taken too soon in a tragic accident. At the bottom, it listed her survivors, her parents, Robert and Susan Parker, and her older sister, Nicole Parker. I sat there for a long time, staring at Rachel's photo. She was just a kid, 16 years old. Dark hair pulled back, a shy smile. She looked so much like Nicole it hurt. Scrolling further, I found a link to a San Diego Union-Tribune article dated October 16, 2006. Teen girl killed in hit-and-run accident. The article said Rachel Parker had been struck and killed while crossing the street near Balboa Park around 7:15 p.m. on October 15th. The driver fled the scene. Witnesses described the vehicle as a silver 2006 Honda Accord. Police asked anyone with information to come forward. The driver was never identified. I read the article again, then a third time. October 15, 2006. I had lived in San Diego then. I was working as an accountant for a small firm downtown. Margaret and I lived in North Park. Andrew was in 7th grade. I didn't remember this accident. I didn't remember seeing it on the news. Then, another detail hit me. Silver Honda Accord 2006 model. My hands began to shake. I'd owned a silver Honda Accord in 2006. No, that couldn't be right. I had sold that car. I was sure I had sometime before October. July, August. The dates blurred together. It had been 18 years, but I was certain I'd sold it before October, wasn't I? I glanced at the clock. It was 2:30 a.m. I couldn't wait until morning. I picked up my phone and called Michelle. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Donovan, it's 2:30. Are you okay? I found something I said about Nicole Parker." I heard movement on the other end as she sat up. "What did you find?" She had a sister, Rachel Parker. She died in a hit and run in San Diego on October 15, 2006, 16 years old. The driver was never caught. Silence, then hold on. I heard typing. Michelle was at her computer. After a moment, she spoke again. "I'm looking at the police report. Rachel Marie Parker, 16, struck at Park Boulevard in Elpra at 7:15 p.m. Vehicle described as a silver Honda Accord. Driver fled. Case unsolved." "Unsolved," I repeated. "Yes," I swallowed. "Michelle, I lived in San Diego in 2006. I know, and I owned a silver Honda Accord." The silence stretched. Finally, she said carefully, "Mr. Donovan, did you have anything to do with Rachel Parker's death?" "No," I said immediately. "No, I sold that car before October." "I'm sure." "Are you certain?" "I think so. It was 18 years ago." Her voice softened. "Mr. Donovan, I believe Nicole thinks you're responsible. That's why she changed her name. That's why she married your son. That's why she's trying to hurt you. She believes you killed her sister, and she wants revenge." The word hit me hard. Revenge. "But I didn't do it," I said. "I didn't hit her." "I believe you," Michelle replied. "But we need proof." "Do you remember where you were on October 15th, 2006, at 7:15 p.m.? I tried hard. October 2, 006, One 8 years ago. I don't know. I admitted. I think she urged. Work home with your wife. I pressed my fingers to my temples. I can't remember. Michelle paused. Then she said, we'll figure it out. But we need to prove you weren't the driver because Nicole believes you were and she won't stop until she gets her revenge. The next morning I went to the public library 3 blocks from Edward's house. I needed to find proof that I wasn't the driver who took Rachel Parker's life. The library was quiet. It was a Wednesday morning and only a handful of people were there. A few students, an elderly man reading newspapers, a woman with a toddler in the children's section. I walked to the reference desk and asked the librarian if they had archived newspapers from San Diego. We have digital archives, she said. You can access them on the computers over there. She pointed to a row of desktops along the wall. I thanked her and sat down at one of the computers. My hands were shaking as I opened the browser and navigated to the San Diego Union Tribune archives. I typed in the date October 16, 2006. The page loaded. I scrolled through the headlines and then I found it. Teen girl lost in tragic hit-and-run accident. I clicked on the article. The story was short. It said Rachel Marie Parker, 16, had been struck by a vehicle while crossing Park Boulevard near Balboa Park at approximately 7:15 inches the evening on October 15th. Witnesses reported seeing a silver Honda Accord 2006 model flee the scene. The driver did not stop. Rachel didn't survive. Police were asking anyone with information to come forward. There was a photo of Rachel, the same shy smile I'd seen in the obituary. She was wearing a school uniform. She looked so young. I read the article 3 times, my chest tight. A silver Honda Accord, 2006 model. I'd owned that exact car. I sat back in the chair trying to remember. March of 2006. I'd bought the car from a dealership in downtown San Diego. It was used, but in good condition. Silver exterior, gray interior. I'd driven it to work every day. Margaret had driven it sometimes too. But I'd sold it. I was sure of it. When I closed my eyes, forcing myself to remember. We'd moved to Seattle in late 2007. Before we moved, we'd sold a lot of things, furniture, appliances, the car. We'd wanted to start fresh. But had I sold the car before October? I thought so. I had to be sure. I left the library and walked back to Edward's house. He was in the kitchen making lunch. Edward, do you still have those boxes of old documents in your garage? I asked. He looked up. Yeah. Why? I need to find something. Papers from when I lived in San Diego. What kind of papers? Anything from 2006. Bills, receipts, anything. Edward frowned. Henry, what's going on? I'll explain later. Can you help me look? He wiped his hands on a towel. Yeah, let's go. We went out to the garage. Edward's garage was cluttered, tools, boxes, old furniture covered in dust. But in the back corner, there were 3 cardboard boxes labeled with my name. These are yours, Edward said. You left them here when you moved to your house after Margaret passed. I kept meaning to give them back to you, but he stopped. Well, I guess it's a good thing I didn't throw them out. I opened the first box. Tax returns, old pay-ubs, nothing useful. The second box was full of photos. I set it aside. The third box had file folders. I pulled them out one by one, checking the labels, and then I found it. A folder labeled 2006, San Diego. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside were utility bills, bank statements, insurance documents, and at the very bottom a single sheet of paper, a bill of sale. I pulled it out carefully as if it might disintegrate in my hands. The paper was yellowed with age, but the text was still clear. Bill of sale, seller Henry Donovan, Buyer Scott Anderson. Date of sale July 12, 2006. Vehicle 2006. Honda Accord Silver V1 HGCM 66506A123456. Sale price $8,500. Payment method cashier check. At the bottom there were two signatures, mine and Scott Anderson's. I stared at the date. July 12, 2006. Rachel Parker had lost her life on October 15, 2006. 3 months later, I hadn't owned the car when the accident happened. I'd sold it 3 months before. Scott Anderson had owned it. Henry Edward was standing behind me. Did you find what you needed? I couldn't speak. I just held up the bill of sale. Edward took it from me and read it. His eyes widened. You sold the car in July. Yes. And the accident was in October. Yes. Edward looked at me. Henry, this proves you weren't the driver. I know. Nicole thinks you were responsible for what happened to her sister. But you weren't. You couldn't have been. You didn't even own the car. I know, I said again. I took the bill of sale back and stared at it. This piece of paper proved I wasn't the driver. It proved I was innocent. But it also meant Nicole had been planning to end my life based on a mistake. A tragic, terrible mistake. She'd changed her name. She'd married my son. She'd installed a timer device in my basement. She'd brought me pills that would trigger a fatal allergic reaction. All because she thought I'd taken Rachel from her, but I hadn't. Someone else had Scott Anderson. And Nicole didn't know. I found it 2 days later buried in an old email account I hadn't opened in years. I was sitting at Edward's kitchen table with his laptop trying to remember anything about October 15, 2006. Anything that could prove where I'd been that night. The bill of sale proved I didn't own the car, but Michelle had said I needed more. I needed to prove I couldn't have been the driver, that I was somewhere else when the accident happened. I thought about my life back then. Work, home, Andrew's school. Andrew's school. He'd been in 7th grade at Grant Elementary in San Diego. I remembered parent-teacher conferences. They'd always been in October. I opened my old Gmail account, the one I'd used in 2006 before I'd switched to a newer address. I hadn't logged in for years. The inbox was full of ancient emails, thousands of them, most of them spam or newsletters I'd never unsubscribed from. I typed Grant Elementary into the search bar. Dozens of results came up. School announcements, permission, slips, lunch menu updates, and then I saw it. An email from October 12, 2006. Subject: Parent-Teacher Conference, Andrew Donovan. I clicked on it. The email was from the school office. It confirmed my appointment with Mrs. Linda Rodriguez, Andrew's 7th grade homeroom teacher. The conference was scheduled for October 15, 2006 at 7:00 inches the evening. My heart started pounding. October 15th, 7:00. The same night, Rachel Parker lost her life. The same time I read the email 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Then I looked at my calendar app, the one I'd synced across all my devices for years. I scrolled back to October 2006. There it was. An entry on October 15th. Parent-Teacher Conference, 7:00 p.m. Grant Elementary. I remembered now. I'd gone to that conference. Margaret had been working late, so I'd gone alone. I'd met with Mrs. Rodriguez. We talked about Andrew's grades. He'd been doing well in math, struggling a bit in English. The conference had lasted about 20 minutes. I'd been at Grant Elementary School from 7:00 to 7:30, which meant I couldn't have been at Balboa Park when the accident happened. But I needed proof. An email confirmation wasn't enough. I needed something concrete. Something that would show I'd actually been there, not just that I'd planned to. Be there. I picked up my phone and searched for Grant Elementary School, San Diego. The school was still there. Same address, same phone number. I dialed. A woman answered. Grant Elementary. This is Karen speaking. Hi, my name is Henry Donovan. My son attended your school back in 2006. I'm trying to track down some old records, specifically sign-in sheets from parent-teacher conferences. Do you still have those? There was a pause. From 2006. That's 18 years ago. I know it's a long shot, but it's very important. Can I ask what this is regarding? I hesitated. It's for a legal matter. I need to prove I attended a conference on October 15th, 2006. Another pause. Hold on. Let me transfer you to our office manager. The line went silent for a moment. Then a man's voice came on. This is Tom Brennan. Karen said, you're looking for records from 2006. Shut. Yes. Parent-teacher conference sign-in. Sheets October 15th. Specifically. That's almost 20 years ago, Mr. Donovan. We don't usually keep records that long. My heart sank. I understand. But is there any chance? However, Tom interrupted. We did digitize a lot of our old archives a few years back, part of a district-wide initiative. Let me check. I heard typing. What was your son's name? Andrew Donovan, 7th grade. Teacher was Mrs. Linda Rodriguez. More typing then. Okay, I've got something. October 15th, 2006. Parent-teacher conference night. We have scanned copies of the sign-in sheets. I couldn't breathe. You do? Yeah. Hang on. I'm pulling it up now. More typing, then silence. Mr. Donovan. Yeah, I've got you right here. Henry Donovan signed in at 7:15 p.m. conference with Mrs. Rodriguez. I felt dizzy. You can see my signature. Yeah, it's clear. You want me to email you a copy? Yes, please. What's your email address? I gave it to him. A minute later, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. I opened the attachment. It was a scan of a sign-in sheet. Yellowed paper, a little blurry, but readable. There was a list of names and times handwritten in different styles. And there, about halfway down the page, was my name. Henry Donovan, 7:15 p.m. My signature was right next to it. The same signature I'd been writing for decades. I stared at the screen. Tuju. Himablas PM. October 15th, 2006. Rachel Parker had been struck by a vehicle at Balboa Park at 7:15 p.m. on October 15th, 2006. I'd been at Grant Elementary School 25 minutes away. I pulled up Google Maps and checked the distance. Grant Elementary to Balboa Park, 23.4 m, 26 minutes by car in normal traffic. There was no way I could have been in both places at the same time. I had proof, 2 pieces of proof. The bill of sales showed I'd sold the car 3 months before the accident. The sign-in sheet showed I'd been 26 minutes away when it happened. I wasn't the driver. I couldn't have been, but Nicole didn't know that. And neither did Andrew. I waited until the following Saturday to talk to Andrew. I asked him to meet me at a coffee shop downtown Neutral Ground away from Nicole. I arrived early and sat at a corner table near the back. The place was quiet for a Saturday morning. Just a few students with laptops and an elderly couple sharing a muffin. I had a folder with me containing everything. Camera footage, printouts, the hardware receipt, the fake pill bottle label, the bill of sale, and the sign-in sheet from Grant Elementary. Evidence that would prove my innocence. Evidence that would destroy my son's marriage. Andrew arrived 15 minutes late. He looked terrible. Messy hair, bloodshot, eyes wrinkled, t-shirt like he'd just rolled out of bed. He dropped into the chair across from me and stared at the table. He didn't look at me. Thanks for coming, I said. He shrugged. You said it was important. A waitress came over. Andrew ordered black coffee. I already had mine. When she left, I leaned forward. We need to talk about Nicole. His jaw tightened. Dad, not now. Yes, now. I don't want to talk about her. I don't want to talk about the fire. I don't want to talk about any of it. Andrew, your wife tried to end my life twice. We're going to talk about it. He looked up sharply. What? I opened the folder and pushed it across the table. Look at this. He hesitated, then picked up the first sheet. It was a still image from my doorbell camera. Nicole standing on my porch with a large black duffel bag over her shoulder. February 7th, 6:45 p.m. So he said, she came to your house. We made you dinner. Keep looking. He picked up the next sheet. The hardware store receipt. Henderson's Hardware. February 5th. Timer switch for $12.99. Copper wire for $850. Electrical tape for $5.99. Gas valve adapter for $18.99. Total $4,647. Payment method credit card ending in 8,891. Card holder name Nicole Morgan. Andrew's face went white. What is this? He whispered. Nicole bought the materials to set the fire. I said she brought them to my house in that duffel bag. She installed a timer device in my basement that opened the gas line at 2:30 inches the morning. She tried to end my life while I was asleep. No. He shook his head. No, she wouldn't. I pushed the fake pill bottle label toward him. After that didn't work, she brought me medication. Told me it was heart medicine from Andrew's doctor, but it wasn't Linepro. It was amoxicillin penicillin. She knew I was deathly allergic. She tried again. His hands were shaking now. I pulled out another sheet. Rachel Parker's obituary. The photo of two young women with their arms around each other smiling at the camera. Nicole's real name is Nicole Parker, I said quietly. She had a younger sister named Rachel. Rachel passed away 18 years ago in a hit-and-run accident in San Diego. The vehicle was described as a silver Honda Accord 2006 model. The driver was never caught. Andrew stared at the photo. I don't understand. I owned a silver Honda Accord in 2006. His eyes widened. Nicole thinks I was the driver. I continued. She thinks I took Rachel from her and got away with it. That's why she changed her name. That's why she married you. That's why she's been trying to harm me. Oh my God. He breathed. I slid the bill of sale across the table, but I wasn't the driver. I sold that car on July 12th, 2006, 3 months before Rachel's accident. The buyer's name was Scott Anderson. This proves it. Andrew picked up the paper with trembling hands. And this, I pushed the last sheet forward. Sign-in sheet from Grant Elementary. Your parent, teacher conference. October 15th, 2006. I signed in at 7:15 p.m. The accident happened at 7:15 p.m. at Balboa Park, 26 minutes away. I couldn't have been in both places at the same time. He stared at my signature on the page, at the date, at the time, and then his face crumpled. He covered his face with his hands and his shoulders started shaking. He was crying. Dad, he choked out. Dad, I said those words to you. This isn't my problem anymore. When you called me that night terrified and I hung up on you. I know, Nicole told me. His voice broke. She said you'd hurt her family years ago, that you'd never face justice for what you did, that you deserved what was happening to you. And I believed her. I believed her. And I turned my back on you when you needed me most. I reached across the table and gripped his arm. Andrew, she manipulated you. She lied to you to get what she wanted. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. Tears streamed down his face. You almost didn't make it twice. And I wasn't there. But I did make it. I'm still here. He wiped his eyes roughly because Edward called 911. Because you got lucky. Not because of me. Andrew, listen to me. Nicole is dangerous. She's tried twice and she's going to try again. We need to stop her before she hurts someone else. He took a shaky breath and nodded. Tell me what to do. Anything. I'll do anything. First, we need to talk to Detective Martinez. And the lawyer Michelle recommended Christine Drake. She handles cases like this. Okay. I looked at my son. He'd hurt me deeply when he refused to help me that night. But seeing the guilt and pain in his eyes, now seeing him, willing to make it right, I knew he was still my son. And we were going to fix this together. We set a trap, I said, and we make sure Nicole can't hurt anyone ever again. The meeting with Christine Drake took place the following Tuesday. Michelle Reeves, Detective Greg Martinez, Andrew and I sat around a polished conference table in Christine's law office, carefully planning how to finally bring Nicole to justice. Christine's office was downtown, on the 14th floor of a glass building overlooking the city. The conference room was sleek and modern, with a polished wood table, leather chairs, and whiteboards lining the walls. Christine sat at the head of the table with a thick stack of file folders neatly arranged in front of her. She was in her mid-40s, sharpied, with dark hair pulled back into a tight bun. A navy suit framed her posture, and her glasses rested low on her nose. When she spoke, her tone was calm, controlled, and authoritative. "Mr. Donovan," she said, fixing her gaze on me, "I've reviewed all the evidence Michelle and Detective Martinez have collected. The camera footage, the hardware store, receipt, the forged insurance documents, and the tampered. It's strong, but it's circumstantial." "Circumstantial," I repeated. "Yes," Christine replied. "It points to Nicole, but a skilled defense attorney could argue that someone else had access to your home. They could say the receipts don't prove intent, or that the medication mix-up was an accident." She leaned forward slightly. "What we need is a confession. Nicole admitting on the record what she did and why she did it." Greg nodded. "That's where the wire comes in." He reached into his jacket and placed a small black device on the table. It looked like a button no bigger than a dime. "This is a recording device," Greg explained. "We'll attach it to your clothing inside a shirt or under a collar. It clearly records audio within a 10-foot radius. If Nicole says anything incriminating, we'll have it." I stared at the device. "You want me to wear that?" "Yes," Greg said. "And just talk to her, not just talk." Christine said, "You need to create a situation where she feels safe, where she believes she's already won. People confess when they think they're in control." Michelle leaned forward. "We're thinking a dinner at Edward's house. Andrew invites Nicole and tells her you want to reconcile before you move away." "Move away?" I asked. "We'll tell her you're relocating to Seattle," Michelle said. "Starting over. You want peace with the family before you leave." It gives her a reason to come, and urgency. Andrew, who had been quiet beside me, finally spoke. "She'll think it's her last chance." "Exactly," Greg said. I looked at Andrew. His face was pale, but his expression was resolute. "You think she'll believe it?" I asked. "She will," Andrew said quietly, "because I'll sell it. I'll tell her you're done with everything and just want closure." He swallowed hard. "She'll think she's about to win." Christine pulled a legal pad toward her. "Here's the plan. Andrew calls Nicole tonight and keeps the invitation casual. Dad wants dinner before he leaves. We set it for Friday, April 12th. That gives us 5 weeks to prepare." "5 weeks?" I asked. We need time for warrants and coordination, Greg said. And to position officers. We can't rush this. Christine nodded. The dinner will be at Edward's house. Henry, you'll cook something simple. It needs to feel real. During the meal, steer the conversation toward San Diego, toward Rachel. Let Nicole know you see who she really is. And then I asked. Then you listen, Christine said. No accusations. No threats. Let her talk. If she confesses, we have what we need, and if she doesn't, Greg's face hardened. Then we adapt. But based on Nicole's behavior, she'll want to gloat. People like her crave recognition. She'll confess, Andrew said firmly. If she thinks she's won, she'll want Dad to know. Christine wrote more notes. On the night of the dinner, Detective Martinez and 2 uniformed officers will be outside in an unmarked car. Michelle will be in the guest bedroom with a backup recorder. If Nicole becomes violent or tries to leave, officers move in. Violent, I asked. She's tried to hurt you twice, Christine said bluntly. We must assume she could try again. Michelle slid another device across the table. This is a panic button. If anything goes wrong, press it. Officers will be inside within 30 seconds. I turned it over in my hand, small and flat. Keep it in your pocket, Michelle said. Greg stood and sketched Edward's house on the whiteboard. The kitchen dining room entrances. Officer 1 here, he said, pointing to the front. Officer 2 in back. I'll be in the car. Michelle in the guest room. And Andrew, I asked. I'll be at the table, Andrew said. If I'm not there, she'll get suspicious. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He said, she's my wife. This is on me. Christine closed her pad. Let's review the questions. For the next hour, she coached me on tone and timing, how to mention San Diego, Rachel, and doubt without pressure. Don't push, she repeated. Comfort leads to confession. By the time we finished, my head was spinning. As we left, Christine pulled me aside. This is dangerous, she said quietly. If Nicole suspects the truth, she could try again. Right there. I know, I said. Her eyes searched my face. If this goes wrong, we might not reach you in time. I know, she studied me, then nodded. Friday, April 12th, she said. Be ready. I spent the morning cooking Margaret's old recipes, the ones I still remembered. If this was a trap, it needed to look real. I started with the roast chicken the way Margaret used to make it. Lemon, rosemary, garlic. The kitchen filled with that familiar scent. And for a moment, I could almost forget what tonight was really about. But the weight of the recording device against my chest reminded me every word I said tonight would be captured. Every word Nicole said would be evidence. Edward helped me set the dining table. We used his good china, the kind you save for special occasions. White plates with gold-trimmed crystal glasses. Cloth napkins folded into triangles. It looked like a family dinner. It looked safe. That was the point. At 5:00, Detective Martinez arrived through the back door. He carried a small black case and didn't waste time with pleasantries. Lift your shirt, Mr. Donovan. The recording device was smaller than I expected. A thin wire ran from a microphone the size of a dime to a transmitter the size of a credit card. Greg taped it to my chest, just below my collar. The adhesive pulled at my skin. Don't touch it, Greg said. Don't adjust it. If Nicole gets suspicious, we lose everything. Michelle arrived next and set up a backup recorder on the bookshelf in the living room, hidden behind a row of Edward's old law textbooks. She tested it twice, then nodded. We're ready, she said. 2 unmarked police cars were parked 2 blocks away. Officers in plain clothes, ready to move the moment Nicole incriminated herself, or the moment things went wrong. At 6:15, my phone buzzed. Andrew, on our way. She's excited. This is going to work. My hands were shaking. I poured myself a glass of water and tried to steady my breathing. Edward squeezed my shoulder. "You can do this, Henry." I wasn't sure I believed him. At 6:30, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there she was. Nicole Morgan, the woman who had tried to end my life twice. She wore a navy blue dress and heels. Her hair was pulled back. She smiled warm and bright like she was genuinely happy to be here. "Hi, Dad," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I forced myself not to pull away. Andrew stood behind her, his face pale. His eyes met mine for just a second, and I saw the fear there. He was barely holding it together. "I thank you for inviting us," Nicole said as she stepped inside. She handed me a bottle of wine. "I brought something special." I took the bottle. My stomach turned. Was this another attempt? Was the wine laced with something? "That's very thoughtful," I said. I set it on the counter. I wouldn't be drinking it. Edward greeted them in the living room. Nicole complimented the house, the table setting, the smell of the chicken. She was charming, gracious, the perfect daughter-in-law. We sat down at the table. Edward served the chicken. I passed the mashed potatoes. Andrew poured water into everyone's glasses. Nicole talked about her work at the dental office, about a patient who'd come in with a ridiculous story. She laughed. We all laughed. It felt surreal. Then, Nicole turned to me. "So, Dad, when are you planning to move to Seattle?" I kept my voice steady. "After the insurance situation is settled." "Oh." Her eyebrows lifted. "Has the insurance company paid out yet?" "Not yet. They're still investigating. Apparently, there's some kind of issue." Nicole's expression didn't change, but I saw the flash in her eyes. Just for a second, then it was gone. "What kind of issue?" she asked lightly. "They didn't say something about the claim." Andrew's hand trembled as he picked up his fork. He didn't look at Nicole. Nicole took a sip of water. "Well, I'm sure it will work out. These things always do." The air felt thick. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the clink of silverware against plates. Every sound seemed too loud. I cleared my throat. "Nicole, did you know I used to live in San Diego?" She stopped eating. "Herfolk huelin." Midair. Then she set it down carefully. "Yes," she said. "I think Andrew mentioned that once. It was back in 2006. I said a difficult time in my life. Margaret's cancer had just been diagnosed. David Andrew was only 10. I was trying to keep everything together." Nicole's gaze was steady, unblinking. "That must have been hard," she said. "Shoo, it was," I said. "But San Diego had its own tragedies that year. I heard about a terrible accident, a hit and run." Nicole's hand tightened around her water glass. "Yes," she said quietly. "A 6-year-old girl. The driver was never caught." The room went silent. Edward stopped chewing. Andrew's face went white. Nicole didn't move. She just looked at me, her smile still in place, but her eyes were cold now. Empty. Her name was Rachel Parker. Nicole said she was walking home from a friend's house. Someone in a silver Honda hit her and left her there to pass away alone in the dark. Her voice was calm, too calm. "That's terrible," I said. "It was," Nicole said. She picked up her wine glass. "The police never found the driver. No justice, no closure, just a family left behind to wonder why." She took a slow sip of wine, then set the glass down. But she said, her smile returning, "Would you like some wine? I brought a special bottle just for tonight." The way she said it, the emphasis on special, made my blood run cold. Edward's eyes met mine across the table. Andrew's jaw clenched. Nicole stood the bottle in her hand and walked toward me. "Let me pour you a glass," she said. I didn't swallow. I let the wine touch my lips, tilted the glass as if drinking, then set it down. Nicole watched me. Her eyes tracked every movement. The smile on her face was still there, but it looked painted on, now frozen. My doctor told me I shouldn't drink alcohol while I'm on heart medication, I said. Her jaw tightened just slightly, but I saw it. But you go ahead, Nicole, I said. Cheers. She lifted her own glass and took a sip. Her gaze never left mine. She was waiting, watching, expecting something to happen. I picked up my fork and took another bite of chicken, chewed slowly, swallowed, smiled. This turned out well. Don't you think? Nicole set her glass down. Her hand trembled. Andrew was staring at his plate. His knuckles were white around his fork. Edward sat perfectly still, his expression carefully neutral. I leaned back in my chair. Nicole, I said, what's your real name? The room went silent. Nicole's eyes widened just for a second. Then her face smoothed over, that practiced smile returning. I don't know what you mean, Dad. Yes, you do, I said. Your real name, the one you were born with. She didn't answer. Nicole Parker, I said. Rachel Parker's older sister. The color drained from her face. Andrew looked up sharply. Dad, she knows, I said, keeping my eyes on Nicole. Don't you? Nicole stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. Her hands were shaking now, and she wasn't trying to hide it anymore. You know, she said. Her voice was low, tight. You know who I am. I know who Rachel was, I said. I know what happened to her on October 15th, 2006. Nicole's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. You ended her life, she said. You were driving that silver Honda. You hit my sister and you left her there. You left her alone in the dark and you drove away like she was nothing. Her voice broke. She was 16 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her, and you took it away. I stayed calm. I had to. Nicole, I wasn't the driver. You're lying. She screamed. Andrew stood up. Nicole, sit down, Andrew. She snapped. She turned back to me, her face twisted with fury. You owned a silver 2006 Honda Accord. I checked. I found the registration. You were in San Diego. You were there, I was, I said, but I wasn't driving that car on October 15th. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the folded bill of sale. I set it on the table and slid it toward her. I sold that car on July 12, 2006, 3 months before Rachel passed away. The buyer's name was Scott Anderson. Nicole stared at the paper. Her hand hovered over it, but she didn't pick it up. Oh no, she whispered. No, that's not. And I have an alibi, I said. On October 15th, 2006, at 7:15 p.m., I was at Grant Elementary School. I was at a parent-teacher conference for Andrew. I signed in. The school still has the record. I pulled out the second document, the sign-in sheet, my signature. At 2:100 p.m. The accident happened at 7:15 p.m. near Balboa Park, I said. That's 25 minutes away from the school. I couldn't have been in both places at the same time. Nicole picked up the bill of sale with trembling hands. She read it once, twice, then she dropped it. No, she said again. No, no, no. But you targeted the wrong person, Nicole, I said quietly. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw the mask crack completely. The grief, the rage, the years of pain. My family was destroyed, she said. My mother couldn't handle it. She passed away 2 years later. My father left. I was 18 years old and alone, and no one ever paid for what happened to Rachel. I'm sorry for your loss, I said. But I didn't cause it. Then who did? She shouted. Who was driving that car? Connie Anderson, we said. The man who bought my car. Nicole stared at me. Then she laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. All of this, she said. All of this for nothing. Andrew stood up. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. Nicole, you tried to end my father's life twice. She turned to him, her eyes wide. Andrew, I did it for us. For you. You were drowning in debt. $47,000. We needed that money. So you decided to harm someone, Andrew said. Someone who hadn't done anything wrong. I thought he had, Nicole screamed. I thought he was the one who. She stopped. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. She looked around the table. At me, at Andrew, at Edward. You set me up, she said slowly. This whole dinner, the reconciliation, it was all a trap. I didn't answer. Nicole's gaze dropped to my chest, to the small bulge under my shirt. You're wearing a wire, she whispered. She backed away from the table. Her eyes darted to the door. On Nicole, I said. It's over. No, she said. No, I can. The front door opened. Detective Greg Martinez stepped inside, followed by two uniformed officers. One male, one female. Both had their hands near their weapons. Nicole froze. Nicole Parker Morgan. Greg said, his voice calm and official. You are under arrest for attempted harm against Henry Donovan, arson, insurance fraud, and forgery. The female officer stepped forward with handcuffs. Nicole didn't resist. She just stood there staring at me. Her face was empty now. Hollow. You have the right to remain silent. The officer said, anything you say can, and will be used against you in a court of law. Andrew sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Edward exhaled slowly. I watched as they led Nicole toward the door. She looked back at me one last time. I hope you understand, she said quietly. I hope you understand what it's like to lose someone you love and have no one pay for it. I do, I said. But vengeance isn't justice, Nicole. She didn't answer. The officers led her outside. The door closed behind them. The house was silent. I pulled the wire off my chest and set it on the table. My hands were shaking. It's over, Edward said. Andrew looked up at me. His eyes were red. Dad, I known, I said. And I did. The police station was bright and cold. I sat in an interrogation room with Detective Greg Martinez, giving my formal statement for the third time that night. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The walls were beige and bare. A two-way mirror reflected my own tired face back at me. I looked older than I remembered. Greg sat across from me with a digital recorder between us. He'd heard the story twice already, but procedures were procedures. Let's go through it one more time, Mr. Donovan, too, he said. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told him about the fire, about the insurance fraud, about the forged signature, about the medication Nicole had brought, about the doorbell camera, footage about Rachel Parker, and the hit and run that had happened 18 years ago, about the bill of sale, and the alibi that proved I wasn't the driver. Greg listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. We have the recording from the wire, he said. Nicole's confession is clear. She admitted to both attempts on your life. She admitted her motive. She admitted purchasing the timer device and the materials from Henderson's Hardware. She admitted switching your medication. He tapped the recorder. This is enough, he said. More than enough. I nodded. I felt numb. What happens now, I asked. Nicole's being held in a separate room. Greg said she's requested a lawyer and isn't saying anything more. That's her right. But the evidence speaks for itself. Like, what will she be charged with? Greg's expression was grim. Attempted harm, 2 counts. Arson, insurance, fraud, forgery, reckless endangerment. We're also looking at charges related to the medication tampering that's effectively poisoning under California law. He paused. If convicted on all counts, she's looking at 20 to 25 years. 25 years. Nicole was 36. She'd be in her 60s when she got out. If she got out, I thought about Rachel Parker, 16 years old. She never got a second chance. And Andrew, I asked quietly. Greg's jaw tightened. Your son is being questioned in another room. Is he under arrest? Not yet, Greg said. But we need to establish what he knew and when he knew it. My stomach turned. He didn't know about the fire, I said. Or the medication. Nicole manipulated him. Maybe, Greg said. But he knew about the insurance fraud. He knew about the forged beneficiary change, and he didn't report it. That makes him potentially complicit. He was in debt, I said. $47,000. Nicole used that against him. I understand, Greg said. But intent matters. If Andrew knew about the fraud and didn't report it, he could face charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Accessory after the fact. He softened slightly. Christine Drake is negotiating on his behalf. If Andrew cooperates, fully testifies against Nicole, provides documentation of the debt and Nicole's manipulation, the DA might agree to reduce charges or immunity. What does that mean? It means Andrew tells the truth, Greg said. All of it. And in exchange, he walks away with probation instead of prison time. I closed my eyes. My son, my only child, testifying against his wife to save himself. But what choice did he have? Will he do it? I asked. He's considering it, Greg said. Christine is with him now. At 2:00 the morning, I finally left the police station. Edward was waiting in the lobby. He stood when he saw me, his face lined with exhaustion. Let's go home, he said quietly. We didn't talk on the drive back. The streets were empty. The city was asleep. Edward's headlights cut through the darkness, and I watched the familiar buildings pass by. When we got to Edward's house, he went straight to the kitchen and put the kettle on. I sat at the table and stared at the place where Nicole had sat just hours ago. The dishes were still in the sink. The wine bottle she brought was still on the counter. Edward set a mug of tea in front of me. Drink, he said. I wrapped my hands around the mug, but I couldn't lift it. My hands were shaking. It's over, Henry, Edward said. Nicole's in custody. You're safe. And Andrew might go to prison, I said. Edward didn't answer. He couldn't. We both knew it was a possibility. He didn't know, I said. He didn't know she'd set the fire. He didn't know about the medication. She used him. I believe you, Edward said. But the law doesn't care about what he didn't know. It cares about what he did know and what he chose to do about it. I thought about Andrew's face at the dinner table, the way his hands had trembled, the way he'd looked at Nicole when she'd confessed. He'd been horrified, devastated, but he'd also been complicit. He'd known about the beneficiary change. He'd known I hadn't signed it, and he'd said nothing. What kind of father am I? I said quietly. If I let my son go to prison, what kind of father would you be? Edward said. If you let him get away with fraud. I didn't have an answer. Edward squeezed my shoulder. Get some sleep, Henry. Tomorrow will be easier. But I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with my cold tea and thought about Nicole in her cell, about Andrew in an interrogation room, about Rachel Parker's grave somewhere in San Diego. Rachel Parker, 16 years old, gone for 18 years. And somewhere out there, Scott Anderson, the man who'd actually been driving my car, was still walking free. Nicole had destroyed her own life chasing vengeance against the wrong person. And now my son might lose his freedom because he'd loved the wrong woman. I sat there until the sun came up. The trial began in late April 2024. I sat in the courtroom every day watching Nicole Parker Morgan face the consequences of her choices. The courtroom was formal and intimidating. Wood-paneled walls, a high judge's bench, rows of seats for spectators. I sat in the front row behind the prosecution's table next to Edward. Andrew sat alone on the other side. Nicole was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. Her hands were cuffed. She looked smaller than I remembered. But when her eyes met mine, there was no remorse, only bitterness. The prosecutor was William Harris, mid-50s, sharp suit, sharp voice. He stood before the jury and laid out the case with precision. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about calculated revenge. Nicole Parker Morgan believed she had identified the person responsible for her sister's tragic passing 18 years ago. Instead of seeking justice through the legal system, she decided to become judge, jury, and executioner. He paused. She attempted to end Henry Donovan's life not once but twice. She installed a timer device to flood his home with gas and ignite a fire while he slept. When that failed, she gave him medication that would have caused a fatal allergic reaction. Both attempts were premeditated. Both were deliberate, and both were based on a lie. He turned to the jury. Mr. Donovan was innocent. He had an alibi. He had sold the vehicle months before the accident. Yet Nicole Morgan proceeded anyway. William presented the evidence methodically. The hardware store receipt from Henderson's Hardware dated February 5, 2024. The doorbell camera footage showing Nicole carrying the black duffel bag into my house on February 7th. The timer device recovered from the ruins. The fake medication bottle labeled Linapril but containing amoxicillin, a penicillin derivative I was severely allergic to. Then he played the recording. Nicole's voice. You ended her life. You were driving that silver Honda. You hit my sister and you left her there. My voice. Nicole. I wasn't the driver. I sold that car on July 12, 2006. Nicole's voice louder. I did it for us, for you. You were drowning in debt. $47,000. We needed that money. The jury listened in silence. William called expert witnesses. Michelle Reeves testified about the arson investigation, the timer device rigged to the gas line set for 2:30 a.m., designed to cause maximum harm. Dr. Catherine Hayes testified about the medication tampering. She explained how amoxicillin had been placed in a Linapril bottle, how the dosage would have been fatal given my documented penicillin allergy. William turned to the jury one last time. Nicole Morgan had every opportunity to stop, to reconsider, to seek help. But she didn't. She chose vengeance. And in doing so, she became the very thing she hated. Someone who tried to take an innocent life. Nicole's defense attorney was a woman in her 40s. Calm professional. She addressed the jury. My client does not dispute the facts. What she disputes is the intent behind those actions. She paused. Nicole Morgan was 18 when her sister Rachel was taken from her. Her mother passed away from grief 2 years later. Her father abandoned her. For 18 years, Nicole lived with the pain of knowing that the person who harmed Rachel was never caught, never punished. She gestured to Nicole. When she believed she had found that person, she acted out of grief and trauma, not malice. And when she learned the truth, she expressed remorse. William stood. Look, objection, Your Honor. The defendant only expressed remorse after she was caught. She made 2 deliberate attempts. This was calculated, sustained. The judge said the defense tried to argue diminished capacity, psychological trauma, but the evidence was overwhelming. Andrew took the stand 3 days into the trial. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed, thin. He wouldn't look at Nicole. William questioned him. Mr. Donovan, what was your relationship with the defendant? She was my wife, Andrew said quietly. So, did you know about her plans to harm your father? No, I didn't know about the fire. I didn't know about the medication. But you did know about the insurance fraud. Andrew swallowed. Yes. You knew the beneficiary had been changed without your father's knowledge. Yes. And you didn't report it? No. His voice cracked. I didn't. Why? Andrew gripped the armrests. Because I was in debt. $47,000. I had been scammed, and I was desperate. Nicole told me my father had harmed her family. She said he was the one driving the car that ended Rachel's life. She said he deserved to lose everything. He looked up, meeting my eyes. I believed her, and I was wrong. I'm so sorry, Dad. The courtroom was silent. As part of his plea agreement, Andrew pleaded guilty to insurance fraud and obstruction. In exchange for his testimony, the DA recommended probation 2 weeks after Nicole's trial. Andrew stood before the judge for sentencing. The judge looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Donovan, you were manipulated, but you were also complicit. You knew a crime was being committed and you chose not to report it. Andrew nodded. I understand, Your Honor. 5 years supervised probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory counseling. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Don't waste this second chance. Andrew left without looking at me. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the 4 women stood on the charge of attempted harm in the first degree. Count 1. How do you find guilty? Count 2. Guilty. Arson in the first degree. Guilty. Insurance fraud. Guilty. Forgery. Guilty. Nicole didn't react. She stared straight ahead. The judge read the sentence aloud. Nicole Parker Morgan, you have been found guilty on all counts. This court sentences you to 25 years in state prison for attempted harm. 10 years for arson to run concurrently, 5 years for insurance fraud to run concurrently, 3 years for forgery to run concurrently. You will be eligible for parole after serving 20 years. Nicole was led away. She didn't look back. I stood outside the courthouse after the sentencing, watching as they led Nicole to the transport van. 25 years. She'd be 61 when she got out, if she got out. But I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired, and I felt like I owed something to the girl whose passing had started all of this. 3 months after the trial, I went to visit Nicole. The state prison was 3 hours north. I drove alone, leaving Edward's house before dawn. The sun was just rising when I pulled into the parking lot. Inside, the guards led me through metal detectors and locked doors. Everything was gray and cold. I sat in a visiting room and waited. When Nicole appeared on the other side of the glass partition, I barely recognized her. She was thinner. Her hair was pulled back. Her orange jumpsuit hung loose on her frame. She picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Why are you here? She asked. Her voice was flat. Like I came because of Luce. Rachel, I said, her eyes filled with tears. You weren't the driver, she whispered. I was wrong. I destroyed my life for nothing until you were wrong about me, I said. But your pain was real. I understand what it's like to lose someone. My wife Margaret passed away years ago. The grief doesn't go away, but Nicole harming an innocent person doesn't bring them back. She looked down at her hands. I know, she said. I'm sorry, but it's too late now. It's never too late to change, I said. You have 25 years ahead of you. You can choose how you spend them. Nicole nodded slowly. She wiped her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. I don't deserve it. Maybe not, I said. But Rachel deserves to be remembered, and I'm going to make sure she is. The next day I drove to San Diego. I hadn't been back in 18 years. The city had changed. New buildings, new roads, but some things stayed the same. I found Green Hill Cemetery in the late afternoon. It was quiet, peaceful. Rows of headstones stretched across the grass. I walked slowly reading the names until I found hers. Rachel Parker Etusene og 990 2006. Beloved daughter and sister. The headstone was simple weathered. There were no fresh flowers, no signs that anyone had visited recently. I knelt down and placed a bouquet of white lies on the grass. Michelle, I said quietly, you didn't deserve what happened to you. Your family didn't deserve the pain. And I'm sorry that Nicole blamed me for so long. I'm sorry that the real driver was never caught. The wind moved through the trees. But you won't be forgotten. I said I'll make sure of that. I stayed there for a long time watching the sun sink lower, thinking about all the lives that had been broken by one terrible moment 18 years ago. When I got back to Edward's house, Andrew was waiting for me. He was sitting on the porch steps. He stood when he saw me. Dad, he said, can we talk? We sat together on the steps. The evening air was cool. I'm sorry, Andrew said, his voice cracked. I'm sorry for everything. I let Nicole manipulate me. I didn't protect you. I let you down. I put my hand on shoulder. You were in a bad situation. I said she lied to you. She used your debt against you. I don't blame you for that. But I should have known. Andrew said I should have questioned her. I should have. You can't change the past. I said none of us can. But you can choose what you do now. Andrew looked at me. His eyes were red. I don't know how to move forward, he said. I don't know how to live with what I did. We do it together, I said. Family doesn't abandon each other. Not ever. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Andrew leaned his head on my shoulder and we both cried. 13 months after the fire, I stood on stage at the University Conference Center looking out at 200 faces waiting to hear my story. The conference was titled. I gripped the podium and began. My name is Henry Donovan. I'm 70 years old and 13 months ago someone tried to end my life. The room was silent. The first attempt was a fire. A timer device rigged to my gas line set. I paused. The second attempt was poison. Medication that looked like my heart. Pills, but contained a substance I was deathly allergic to. I survived because I went to the hospital in time. I could see people leaning forward. The person who did this wasn't a stranger. It was my daughter-in-law, a woman. I told them about the insurance fraud, the forged signature, the beneficiary change, the doorbell camera footage, the hardware receipt, the confession at the dinner table. Why did she do it? Because she believed I was responsible for her sister's passing 18 years ago. She believed I was driving the car that struck. I looked out at the audience. Oh, I was lucky. I had evidence. I had friends who believed me. I had investigators who took me seriously. But many victims of elder abuse don't. They're isolated. They're scared. They're ashamed. I gripped the podium tighter. So I'm here to tell you 3 things. First, trust but verify. Check your documents. Monitor your accounts. Don't assume. Second, speak up. If something feels wrong, say something. Don't let fear or embarrassment keep you silent. Then third, forgive but never forget. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the harm didn't happen. It means choosing not to let hatred consume you. I stepped back from the podium. Thank you for listening. The applause was loud and sustained. During the Q&A session, a woman in the front row raised her hand. Mister, I took a breath. Andrew was manipulated. He was in debt and desperate. Nicole lied to him. She told him I was responsible for her sister's passing. He believed her. That doesn't make what he did right, but it makes him human. I paused. We don't choose our blood family. Another hand went up. A younger man stood. He said. How did you find the strength to keep going? It was Andrew. The room went quiet. People turned to look at him. I looked at my son. Because I didn't want hate to win, I said. I wanted love to win. Andrew nodded and sat down. Someone in the back started clapping. After the conference, Andrew and I went to dinner. We sat at a small Italian restaurant near the university. We didn't talk about Nicole or the trial. We talked about his community service, about the counseling sessions. I'm going to do things right this time, Dad, Andrew said. I promise. I know you will, I said, and I'll always be here. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That night I sat in Edward's guest room, the room that had been my home for 13 months. I looked at the photo of Margaret on the nightstand. Her smile, her eyes. We made it through, Margaret, I said quietly. We're going to be okay. My phone rang. It was Andrew. Dad, I just wanted to say good night. And you too, son. I set the phone down and looked around the room. Tomorrow. But tonight I was just grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for the truth. And grateful that even in the darkest moments, there's always a path forward. You just have to choose to walk it. Looking back on everything that happened, I can finally admit this to myself: I was wrong in many ways. I was too trusting. I assumed blood would always mean protection. I believed that, because I was a father, because I had given everything, I would never become a target inside my own family story. That mistake nearly cost me my life. If you're listening to this, let me say what I wish someone had said to me years earlier. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the small warning signs. Don't leave your documents unchecked. Don't assume silence means peace. And don't believe that love alone is enough to keep you safe. In my family's story, danger didn't arrive with anger or threats. It arrived with smiles, shared dinners, and quiet manipulation. Here's the lesson I learned the hard way, and I'm saying this as the man who lived it. Justice matters, but obsession with dad revenge destroys everyone involved. Nicole chased dad revenge for nearly 2 decades, and it consumed her entire life. I could have done the same. I could have let bitterness define my future. I could have cut my son out of my life forever. But I chose accountability over hatred, truth over rage, and healing over dad revenge. I also learned this: being a victim doesn't make you weak, but staying silent can make you vulnerable. Speak up. Verify everything. Protect yourself even when it feels uncomfortable, especially when it involves family. This family story taught me that forgiveness is not denial. Forgiveness is clarity. Forgiveness is choosing not to let pain dictate who you become. At my lowest point, when I realized someone had tried to erase my life, I found myself praying again. I asked God not for vengeance, but for wisdom. And what I received was the strength to see clearly, to separate justice from cruelty and responsibility from hatred. Here's my honest opinion. Stripped of emotion and drama, revenge feels powerful, but it's empty. Truth is quieter, but it lasts. I believe this with everything I am now. I believe protecting your integrity is more important than proving someone wrong. I believe accountability heals more than anger ever could. And I believe walking away from hatred is the bravest decision a person can make. This isn't just my family story. It's a warning, and it's a reminder. Families can hurt you. Love can be manipulated. And dad revenge stories don't end in victory. They end in loss on every side. Choose awareness. Choose truth. Choose to protect yourself without becoming the very thing that harmed you. If this story resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? What lesson did it teach you? If you feel this message could help someone else, please share it. And if you'd like to continue these conversations, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps more than you know. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. And a gentle note before you go. Upcoming stories on this channel may include fictionalized elements carefully crafted for educational and reflective purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to step away and choose something that better fits your preferences. I truly respect that choice, and I appreciate you being here.